The No Kings rallies, they don't have not one of those demands. It's not to get corporate money out. It's not to get billionaires out from running our politicians. It's not to curtail lobbyists. It's not nothing. It's about absolutely nothing. And
what a waste!
Except
what a waste!
Except splitting up the country. So your book is about taking back America. Well, the subtitle is Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time. And I wanted to, right after Trump was elected the first time, they had the Women's March. Remember that? Because Trump was so anti-women. Remember that? That he was the...
sure.
Yeah, he was, not that Joe Biden was credibly accused of rape.
I know.
But not that, but Donald Trump was anti-woman. So they had a Women's March, which was about absolutely nothing. There was no issue they wanted. There was no policy they wanted enacted. There was nothing. It was a big nothing. And what it was to show that America is divided. And they're doing it again, Mel. So there's the No Kings, No Thrones, No Crowns, No Kings protests, which is going to be on October 18th. It says millions of us are rising again to show the world America has no kings and the power belongs to the people. And here's the map from their website. That's going to be all the No Kings rallies, which, by the way, funded by George Soros.
Yes.
And here's what they say it is. The No Kings protests are a series of nationwide demonstrations in the United States, primarily organized in 2025 to oppose perceived authoritarian actions by President Donald Trump's second administration. The first major wave occurred on June 14th, dubbed No Kings Day, and coinciding with Trump's blah, 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 blah. So it's all about organizers framed it as a defense of democracy. So after the Democrats had no primary, after they sued to get third parties off the ballot, now they're the ones standing up for democracy. Isn't that wild? Because they're not for democracy.
No.
So, and I just want to show you, and it says a second wave, No Kings 2, which is the one coming up on the 18th, is scheduled for October 18th, building on the initial momentum amid ongoing government shutdown debates and the criticisms of Trump's policies. Protests emphasize peacefully assembly, de-escalating training, blah, blah, blah. But conservatives have labeled it AstroTurf, top-down and orchestrated rather than grassroots, which it is.
Yes.
Which it is.
Easily.
This is not. There wasn't a bunch of workers got together. There's a bunch of George Soros funded and NGOs and the ACLU, which has turned to complete crap since 2016. And they won't stand up for
Arabella Partners, the Tides funds. I mean, all these funds. They are all funds, but the problem is that most people aren't realizing they want to collapse America from within. The goal is Agenda 2030. That's the whole goal of all of this. These people are being used like they've been used throughout history every single time. They don't know what they're marching for. And you said that about the ACLU, but at the same time, a lot of the unions have been fully infiltrated by, it's really internationally infiltrated. And they are using their organization apparatuses. I mean, you and I probably pay for a couple of the same unions. Everything that they stand for is ridiculous and against anything I believe. And at the same time, that's all the unions, particularly the teachers' unions, are very infiltrated. And they have nothing to do with teaching anymore. They have to do with endless revolution. This is endless revolution. It's a color revolution. And I am fearful because many of us that watch the criminality of invasions and regime change all these years, particularly mine, I think the worst of the worst was beyond Iraq, Libya, which we had no business going into. But if you look back to what was going on there, the National Endowment for Democracy, USAID, all these different groups, all these NGOs, a lot of them also Open Society Soros, were creating a lot of chaos on the ground, the same model they're using here, the same they used everywhere they did regime change. And then next thing you know, what is happening is that the CIA and people like Victoria Nuland and Hillary Clinton and other people, they're there kind of manipulating who's going to take over after they deposed Gaddafi, who should never have been ousted. But what people don't know is they created enough chaos to do something that Samantha Power and I believe George Soros also, he wrote a document in the 90s called the NATO World Order. And if you read that, it's very scary to think that we think NATO is a defensive force for good. I actually think it's the international bankers military at this point.
You're correct about that.
Yeah, but I will tell you that the goal, I believe, is to create as much chaos and division, get towards the point of secession of California and a couple other states, to call Trump an insurrectionist and a king if he tries to crack down on that. And at the same time, they use something to go into those countries. It's called the responsibility to protect. Under the United Nations responsibility to protect, they can supersede the government of any country, which they did in many, including Libya, because the government is not protecting the people sufficiently to in line with the UN Human Rights Treaty, and they can override the government and go in uninvited. This would be NATO. To override the government and take peace into the hands of themselves. So that is the responsibility to protect. And Samantha Power, who caused much damage to this world, in my opinion, was going around promoting this idea. So for me, what I think they want is they want America on fire, so damaged, so down, so many riots, and to get to a point where there is a vote about the United States being uncontrollable and violent and on the cusp of collapse, and then have an international intervention. I can see no other reason to go this route because, of course, World War III is necessary for Agenda 2030. I just think it's been planned for a very long time.
So the thing, I just want to back up. So I'm very pro-union, but I also agree with you that the unions have been infiltrated, and probably a lot of it has to do with the fact that Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act, which means that the United States government, meaning the CIA and the FBI and the NSA, are able to propagandize our own country, our own citizens, which was illegal up until Barack Obama repealed the Smith-Mundt Act. And what that means is people don't realize is that so that means the CIA, the FBI, they can infiltrate unions in America. They can now infiltrate school boards. They can infiltrate NGOs. They can infiltrate anybody now because it's legal for them to do that kind of stuff and propagandize their own people. And I think that's what this No Kings, these protests are all about, because they're not about anything. They keep pretending they're standing up for democracy, and the whole thing is called No Kings, as if because they keep saying Trump is acting like a king and he's acting like a dictator. Well, right now we have a government shutdown, Mel. And why do we have a government shutdown? Because the Democrats are using their leverage under the Constitution. And so if Trump was actually a dictator and a king, he would just open the government up and do whatever he wants. But he can't, because there's actually a system of checks and balances in the United States. We have 3 co-equal separate branches of government, right? The executive, the legislature, and the judicial, they all separate, co-equal. So there are 2 other bodies of the government checking Donald Trump right now, the court system and the legislature, which that's why the government is shut down right now, because in fact, Trump does not have dictatorial powers. He does not have the power of a king. And that's why this is all propaganda. I have no problem with people getting a rally to oppose Donald Trump. I have a problem with the lies that they're organized under, the fact that Donald Trump is a dictator or Donald Trump is a king, and this march is for absolutely nothing. Hey, how about you have a march to end the wars and invest that money back in America? How about you have a march for Medicare for all, because people are losing their health care now under the great big bill, and their premiums are about to double. Even Marjorie Taylor Greene is screaming about it, the most right-wing conservative in the Congress. And so this march is about nothing. This march is about dividing America, and that's how the establishment keeps control. They keep us hating half of the country.
Yes, and it's all by design. None of this is new. And like you said before, I really think we have to come to terms with what exactly the CIA and the State Department have been doing since the murder of JFK. What we have to realize is that every single thing that has happened since we were forced to accept the Warren report back then has basically been the people within our government that commit crimes and those that cover them up for them are promoted. over and over. The rot is so deep, and frankly, it is insidious. And as I fully believe that the Patriot Act to be completely unconstitutional, and now they keep building on it and building on it. But what people don't realize, the Patriot Act wasn't written about 9/11. The Patriot Act was written, actually proposed first under Hillary Care. And then again under Clinton. And then the worst thing, I think probably we can link a lot of this to, is the Project for a New American Century and their, full world control through military strength, mixed with the whole Brzezinski grand chessboard. And here we are. I frankly think, Jimmy, that the American taxpayers are debt of $37 trillion is because the American taxpayers have been lied to, looted, and betrayed by our own for decades upon decades. The Wall Street and the military industrial complex and the international banks are all the same. The CIA, I think, was created to protect them under the guise of us. And when his brother, John Foster Dulles, and Alan Dulles were the State Department and the CIA, I think it went off the rails. And frankly, that is where I think we have the biggest problem, is the intelligence agencies that we don't know don't work for us. They work to continue the control of that international banking cartel that is still under immunity to this day.
I agree with everything you say. I just want to give you one more. This is, again, from the No Kings website. It says, in June, millions of everyday Americans from every walk of life peacefully took to the streets and declared with one voice, "No kings." The world saw, it's almost hilarious. It's the world saw the power of the people, and the President Trump's attempt to coronation collapse under the strength of a movement rising against his abuses of power. Well, then why do you need another rally if it collapsed already? It already collapsed. Right. But they're still saying he's a king and a dictator. Now he's doubling down, sending militarized agents into our communities, silencing voters, and handing How is he silencing voters? And handing, let's finish reading, and handing billionaire giveaways while families struggle. This is funded by billionaires. This whole thing.
I know.
This is as if billionaires are only on one side of the aisle. They fund both sides of the aisle, and then they work together behind the scenes. We all know this. They have a shared agenda. This isn't just politics. It's democracy versus dictatorship And together we're choosing democracy. Okay, let's remember there was no democracy. The Democrats haven't had a real primary since 2012. Right. I don't know. I mean, 2008, because.
Yeah, I don't even think that. Yeah, I think 2008, things went totally haywire. And also, this whole thing about democracy, we're not a democracy because the founders, when they were writing the Federalist Papers, obviously said that they would not want a democracy because they wouldn't want 51% to rule over 49% if that 51% were degenerate, evil,
Yes.
So we're not a democracy. We also have, every state has their own constitution as well. And for me, the reason I wrote Americans Anonymous, which is actually a recovery book, a 12-step recovery plan, is our country is as sick as its secrets, and we need transparency on basically everything that we want to know at this point. And more than that, I really believe that local action, because we have been infiltrated. See how you put up that map of indivisible? And that's all the no kings things and all of that.
Yes.
That map, that is infiltration in local communities all over this country. And it's funded by the same people funding this that are also behind the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, the Agenda 2030. All the things that we're dealing with on a global scale are in a local communities all over this country. What we really need is the American people to start to have oversight in their own backyards, is to start pulling out the NGOs, looking at the no bid contracts, looking at who's coming in, what is sustainable development, where is all of this track and trace surveillance coming from? And like you said before, and this is the most important part, is the global public-private partnership, which of course includes BlackRock at the top right now, signified by the elevation of Larry Fink to the top of the World Economic Forum, is that almost every public pension in America, in every state, including the biggest one in California, is invested through BlackRock into the next phase. Well, they're all for the global public infrastructure. They're all for full track and trace surveillance. They're all for basically tokenizing natural resources to the point that we will own nothing and be happy, and also not be able to go into nature unless we're allowed. And then they need all of this to build the Skynet. What do they need? A tremendous amount of water and energy on our soil in these giant data centers. So we're all paying for our own demise, whether it's through the United States paying for an entire Cold War on communism, which has no defined enemy, or a second war on terrorism that has no defined enemy, or the current situation, which is the Great Reset. And again, we paid for the whole Marshall Plan, the U.S. taxpayers, the whole euro, the whole creation of the EU. That's all money that was funneled out of U.S. taxpayer dollars through USAID, through the reconstruction funds. And believe me, they want World War III in Europe because they're broke, they're losing their power. And the reason we had World War I and World War II, I'm fully convinced, is to consolidate power after, because the real bankers' money comes in the reconstruction after war. So, I mean, we all have to get together and realize that we should not be fighting another war, let alone another war in England and Europe that is really, at the end of the day, about reconstruction and pushing Agenda 2030, so that by 2030 they say, well, everything is a disaster. Get your digital ID, get on the global public infrastructure, because it's impossible to look at Oracle and Palantir and Musk and all of this and not realize they all have deals with the EU. They all have deals with China. They all have deals with Israel. They all have deals with Russia. This is a global public-private partnership and international banking war on all of us. So, I mean, then they have these events that they all pay for so that America doesn't notice.
To me, it's such a red flag. It's so obvious that just like the Women's March in 2016, now these No Kings rallies are about absolutely nothing. Wouldn't it be great if they were actually, hey, let's get corporate money out of our government? Maybe they could have
1,000%.
like some kind of legislative agenda, something that they're demanding. They're demanding nothing. They don't want anything.
How about anti-lobbying? Why not just ban lobbying?
How about that?
It's legalized bribery.
But
we can all agree on that.
We can all agree on that. Yet it's funny that the No Kings rallies they don't have not one of those demands. It's not to get corporate money out. It's not to get billionaires out from running our politicians. It's not to curtail lobbyists. It's nothing. It's about absolutely nothing. And
what a waste!
Except splitting up the country. And again, I'm all for it. You got people protesting, whoever's in government, I'm all for it. But this is top-down funded. This is not grassroots, and this is about nothing. Because if it was grassroots, people would have a demand. People would want something, and it's not about that. You're doing great work, Mel. I really appreciate you coming on and talking. What else did we not get to that you want to talk about? Anything?
Well, I just really want to say that, America's the last stand. They're not after America. They're after the world. And we have to start talking very seriously about the Constitution and the Bill of Rights when it comes to cyberspace and surveillance. Because I am pretty sure that the global public infrastructure that has been built over decades and went like on steroids during the Otto Penn presidency, I'm pretty sure that that's global. And even if we get back our borders on the realm of the earth, that is not the future. And I really think that we have to start asking questions about where are our boundaries and our national sovereignty when it comes to surveillance in cyberspace. And I've been really digging into that because I don't see any. And they're about to make it mandatory in the EU to have a digital track and trace surveillance ID with biometrics. And then they're not going to let Americans, oddly enough, go into EU without it. Well, then are we being forced on the global public infrastructure that Bill Gates and the Rockefellers and the UN built without our knowledge and our consent, like Obama signing us onto Agenda 2030? I just think we have to start asking, where is our Constitution and our Bill of Rights when it comes to that? That is really important that people start understanding. They can end our country and our sovereignty in cyberspace, and we wouldn't even know it.
Can you tell people quickly what is Agenda 2030? Where does it come from? What it's about?
Okay, well, it was first Agenda 21, but what it really is about is the capturing of all natural resources on planet Earth into the hands of the small group that I call the International Banking Cartel and the Global Public-Private Partnership, which is the multinational corporations and the multinational law firms that work with them. So the end goal of Agenda 2030 is to have every human being on planet Earth tracked, traced, and surveilled from birth to death. But that also includes all natural resources, all animals, all plants, everything. Anthony Russo years ago did an interview with some of the Rockefellers, and they talked about it all the way back in the 70s. And frankly, everything from the whole global climate, global pandemics, global wars, all of that is pushing an agenda of ending nation states. Essentially, Agenda 2030 is the end of all nation states for a regionalized government of different groups that are above our countries, like Davos, Bilderberg, Council of Foreign Relations, Chatham House. It's all been built. And frankly, what they need is to get everyone locked into the global public infrastructure. And then there's no freedom. As Oracle's head that is building the Skynet in America said, basically, we will all be on our best behavior because everything will be watched. And it is Big Brother on steroids, and it is all about the concentration of wealth in the hands of those that have basically, I mean, a lot of people wonder, did we win the revolution if they infiltrated us through the Federal Reserve? Well, it's that on steroids, and we will not get out of a technocratic, totalitarian, track and trace surveillance global system if we don't fight it now.
And, you know, I've made the point before that Barack Obama was the perfect person to shield the banks from being broken up after the 2008 crash, because if it was John McCain, people would have risen up and demanded it, but it was Barack Obama, so he silenced the natural constituency that wanted that to happen. And now Donald Trump is his constituency is completely against the surveillance state, yet he's ushering in more of a surveillance state through Palantir, through his buddy Larry Ellison that you just talked about, the head of Oracle, wants us surveilled 24/7 by AI, and so everybody will be on their best behavior. So would you agree with that assessment that Donald Trump is the perfect person because he'll silence a lot of the natural opposition to the expansion of the surveillance state? Nobody's screaming about it right now, which if Kamala Harris was doing this, they would be, but Donald Trump is doing it, so they're silenced, right?
Well, there are a lot of people very, very upset, particularly when he had his meeting and had Zuckerberg on one side and Gates on the other side. And I think a lot of people that really fought, I think, well, in my world, it was less fighting for Donald Trump and more fighting for, I believe that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights are already, gone, basically. And I felt that if they had one more term, the globalists that control Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and all them, that this country would no longer exist. So I think we have a small window, and it's not about Trump, it's about the people. But as for the surveillance state, it is unacceptable. And frankly, every person in America that is on a public pension, whether it's CalPERS or Florida or New York, your money is going through BlackRock to fund this full track and trace surveillance Agenda 2030 because of that. And I really don't understand how there has not been an investigation into the growth from 1988 to now of the power of BlackRock and Vanguard. And as far as America, they are running our country. They were all embedded in the Obama administration, the Trump administration, and the Otto Penn administration. We still don't really know who was running it, but I do know that an international banking group is funding everything from what's happening in America on the ground to what's happening in Ukraine to what's happening in Israel to what's happening in Africa. These are not separate groups. They are an entity that we can see if we look at the different tentacles of it. And the American people should not stand for it in any way. And you can start by questioning your state for having their money be invested in the demise of America through digital surveillance, which is exactly what Larry Fink is presiding over at the World Economic Forum.
Mel K, thanks for coming on. This has been fantastic. You really, you're a real firebrand. I love talking to you. That's the book. It's America Anonymous by Mel K. Check it out. And we look forward to your next book very much.
I will be back. I can't wait. It's going to be eye-opening. I think it'll be freeing to everyone. I'm not so sure that we lost, that the Nazis lost World War II.
I agree with you. That's such a great point. That's right.
Yeah, and I think we have to start redefining exactly what that means. And if we do, we might actually be able to free ourselves finally. World War II might still be going on.
Yeah.
So
October 19th, we'll be in Irvine, California. Then we'll be in Australia. Then we'll be in Burbank, California the day after Thanksgiving. And then Pottstown, Pennsylvania, December 6th. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.